Hey there folks, my name is Peter and my boat trailer is in need of some serious repairs. So last year I put up a video in which I replaced a single bunk on my pontoon boat trailer. Now that bunk, if you were to lift it in the middle, now granted this is a 12-foot board, but if you lifted it say at the 6-foot mark, it would just look like this, right? Like an A or I guess an upside down V, right? Because it was so deteriorated, there was just nothing to it. If you want to see what I'm talking about, you can go check out that video. It's actually right in the thumbnail. You can see what I'm talking about. After I made that replacement, I said, you know, a lot of these other bunks are not great, but I was really hoping I could get by, I don't know, for another year, maybe two, without having to replace all of them. But that's not the case. Instead, when I went to pick up the trailer the other day, because I'm getting ready to take the boat out of the water, I was floored and frankly a little saddened by the fact that almost every bunk on this thing needs to get replaced. Let me show you what I mean with some of this B-roll footage. So this first bunk, it looks fine, but when you dig a little bit deeper and you look at the front of it, I mean the front foot of that board is just hanging on by a thread. Then you've got the board right next to it. Again, from a distance, doesn't look that bad. But if you dig in a little bit more and you pull up from the center, it has the exact same problem as that board I was referencing before, which is that it's just hanging on by a thread. Finally, the 12-footer, which is, I mean, those are the most important ones, right? They're bearing the brunt of this load, is just so warped and bent. It actually kicked the lag screws right out of it. I mean, the thing's almost at a 45-degree angle. We're gonna make some changes and we're gonna do them on today's video. Now, before I take you outside and we actually get to work, let's talk about all of the different tools and supplies that we're gonna need for this project. So from my left to your right, we've got our Kai 7000 scissors. I actually bought these on Amazon. I've used them a handful of times. They're really for like tailoring applications, but today, because we're gonna be cutting the bunk carpet or the fabric, they're gonna work perfectly. Then I have two different trowels. So this is the primary trowel, and I hate the fact that I had to buy this because I have one of these margin trowels. I just couldn't find it. But in order to get our carpet adhesive out of here, I needed something, so I had to pick one of those up. Single pair of pliers. This is really just because on the wood, right, they've got the stapled barcodes in there, so we just want to get those staples out so that we can make a flush application with our staples. Speaking of staples, we've got T50 half-inch stainless steel, and then we're going to be using our Milwaukee M12 staple gun to shoot those things in there. Here I've just got a sander with a P60 sandpaper on it. I'm just gonna run over these pressure treated boards once just to try and give the adhesive a little bit more to stick onto. I don't know if this is really necessary. I don't know if it's that helpful, but I'm gonna try it because last time this adhesive didn't really do anything. The staples are really what's holding on the carpet right now. My solution is of course the sander, but also I've got just a scrap 2x4 with some clamps. My plan today is that once I get all the carpet adhesive on there, I'm gonna put the 2x4, like I'm gonna put the carpet on the pressure treated lumber, then put the 2x4 over top of that, clamp it down, and my hope is that that force is gonna be enough to help this adhere. And then finally, to connect the pressure treated board to the trailer itself, I've got some 3/8 and 1/2 inch long stainless steel lag screws. So like I said, first things first, I just want to get these staples out of there. That one's in there pretty good. As I was transferring all the tools from inside to outside, I realized that I have this, which is my work surface. It's just a folding table. But as I was putting all the tools on the folding table, I'm like, well, now I don't have any room to work. So then I had to bring out the sawhorses and put all the tools on there. But what it reminded me of is the fact that I had to do this once recently as well when my wife and I were detailing our cars, and I was like, you know, I really want like a little, I guess, shop cart, if you will. So when I'm doing stuff outside, I can load it up with whatever I need, roll it out, roll it back, instead of having to set up this job the whole time, because of course that's just a piece of 1/4 inch plywood that I expect to build something with someday. If you have any recommendations for shop carts, either plans to make your own or company products that you really recommend, be sure to leave them in the comments. Admittedly, this is probably one of those projects that's a little bit easier to do with two people, but we're gonna make it work. So my basic plan is I'm gonna cut it before I have the adhesive on here. So let's get this unraveled. And we just flip this over like that. Yeah, last time I didn't have the margin trowel and I kept trying to stick this in here and I could only get so far. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna worry about it right now because I don't have the time. But today, we've got the margin trowel. Now, let's get the board close to the end so that we have room to clamp. Okay, that's good there. Okay. So that's clamped down there pretty good, truthfully. I don't know how long I should let this sit. Obviously, what I would like to do is get into the staples so I could just sort of keep moving. The reality is I only have so many clamps and only so many scrap 2x4s, but because what I really want to be able to do is just sort of flip it, start stapling, and then I think the staples will serve as the holder. So let's see what we can do here. All right, so how about that, huh? Pull this really tight. Look at that. Tell you what, this board thing is working out so well because last time what happened is it was so loose that I ended up having to put a bunch of staples on the side. Functionally doesn't really matter, but aesthetically, I don't really like it. So this method, this is the winner. So I'm very happy with this new method. And look at this end piece. Now, admittedly, this one looks a little bit better than the other one because I had more to work with on this side, but the way I was able to fold it in, that just makes me really happy. I didn't need to use a single staple on the side here, which I'm pretty excited about. I have pretty much equal amount of visible carpet on both sides, which is really nice. And I still haven't unclamped it yet because, again, I don't know exactly how long I should leave it clamped for. I would expect this to dry somewhat quickly. And you know what? The other thing I can do, once I get it installed on the trailer itself, I can always, you know, reclamp it with another piece of wood. So maybe that's what I'll do. For now, why don't we try and get the old bunk off of there. Leave this clamped, and then we'll install it. We'll see the rate at which it's adhered, and then we'll decide if we still need to clamp it or not. You see that? This is why we are repairing these. I just lifted this thing up and it cracked right in half. Such a shame. But that's why we're fixing them. So basically I'm checking to see if we're 2 1/4 inch. That's good right there. That ain't going nowhere. So that's about as solid as you're gonna get. It ain't going nowhere. I was able to reuse 2 of the lags on either side, and I put a stainless here in the middle. The stainless are the same length, but the ones that or I guess that were on the trailer to begin with had a slightly larger head size, but and the clamping method worked really well. This carpet's not coming up at all. You can see it's coming up a little bit here, but that's just because I didn't clamp this. So for the next one, I got 2 more clamps and another piece of scrap wood. I'll just clamp the entire thing, but I'm super happy with the way that turned out. So I'm not going to bore you and make you watch me do this 1, 2, 3, 4 more times, but let me do that and I'll bring you back when we're all done.
A few moments later.
All right, folks, well, the sun is starting to set. What seems like seconds for you all, I think took me over 3 hours, but I got all 5 bunks replaced. That's what you're seeing now in this B-roll, and I should be done with this job, but as I finished, I realized that 2 more 12-footers basically have to be replaced. So the good news is I have more trailer bunk carpet, so I'm going to be able to do this job without much of a hassle. You know, it's like when you start replacing boards in a deck. Eventually you just end up replacing the whole deck anyway. So I probably should have just bought enough to replace them all at once. The truth is I would have ran out of daylight anyway because it's kind of a process. And for the 12 footers, you really need a second person so that you can lay the carpet evenly. With the 8 footers, you can kind of get around it yourself. So this job was definitely necessary. Here you can see all the boards that I took off, and you can just see they're black and molded and rotted and just junk. So I'm glad we did what we did. A little more work to do. I probably won't record that because at this point I have enough videos on the channel of me replacing trailer bunks. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.